Hello, aspirants. Welcome to the UPSC podcast, Listen, Learn, and Revision series of Syllabus Coach. We are now doing the medieval Indian history. This is lesson 13, Delhi Sultanate. In the first lesson of medieval Indian history, I have told you the important kings like dynasties like Palas, Senas, Rashtrakutas, Pratiharas, that is Rajputs, Cholas, Eastern Gangas, etc. These are believed to be the early medieval Indian kings, okay, early medieval Indian dynasties. Now we will deal with the Islamic invaders like Muhammad Ghori, Ghazni, and then how the Delhi Sultanate formed. Okay, so you know that the Delhi Sultanate has ruled almost large parts of India for about 300 plus years, right? Almost 1200 to 1526 till Babur comes to India, right? So the about 320 years. So there are about five important dynasties of Delhi Sultanate. The number one is Mamluk or slave dynasty, Khilji dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty, Sayyid dynasty, and the Lodi dynasty. So this is the broad introduction. Now let me begin with the Islamic invasions. Friends, you should understand that in the Islamic invaders there are two kinds of invaders. That is geographically number one Arabs, number two Turkish. Okay, so they are like two different origins, Arab origin and Turkish origin. Arabs were the first Muslims to invade India. For example, in 713 AD, the Sindh conquest, right? The first Indian state to face the Islamic forces, okay? That was Sindh. That is presently in Pakistan, okay? That was invaded by Arabs. Muhammad bin Qasim killed Sindh ruler in 713 AD, and thus he was the first ever Muslim king on Indian subcontinent soil, but for a short period of time. This victory is politically meaningless but culturally significant. Friends, you should understand that this sin conquest of this person called Muhammad bin Qasim has politically not a significant thing because you know that Delhi Sultanate has established the Islamic rule in 1200 AD. 1200 AD. I am telling you about this conquest in 713 AD. So there is a gap of 500 years. So this Arab conquest did not establish political Islamic rule in India, but for these 500 years, slowly Islam as a tradition and culture has embedded into the Indian culture. Okay, so culturally this has a lot of significance to lay the foundation for the Delhi Sultanate and Mughals rule. So why it is culturally significant? First one, Arab trade started and they took Indian culture and knowledge to Arabia and Europe, right? Arab trade started with India. For example, Shatrunj or chess was learned from India. Arabs had learned chess, which was called as Shatrunj at that time, and they have taken to other countries. And second one, Muslims culture had entered into India, that we all know. Third one, Arabs developed their Unani from our Ayurveda. So they have also learned our algebra, number we have invented. I have told you Brahmagupta zero. So all these mathematics and scientific knowledge and Ayurveda was also taken from India, and they have developed it. And because they were doing trading all over the world, they have taken our knowledge to the Europe and other countries as well. So this was also why Indian culture could go to huge other parts of the world. Okay, now coming to the Delhi Sultanate, the five important dynasties. First one, Qutbuddin Aibak. I will not tell you the all the important, all every each and every king and what he has done politically, but I will focus again. Once again, I'm telling you, I will focus on the cultural and administrative aspects. So, right, Qutbuddin Aibak is the slave of Muhammad Ghori, friends. So, Muhammad Ghazni and Muhammad Ghori have invaded Indian subcontinent. So, in that, Muhammad Ghori's slave was Qutbuddin Aibak. Qutbuddin Aibak was the first king of Delhi Sultanate, right? The first three dynasties are the Turkish, okay, and Lodhis are Afghans. Sayyids are Awas, that is descendants of the prophets. Okay, there are totally, you can say broadly, there are Turkish and Afghans. The first four dynasties, what are the slaves? Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids, they are actually Turkish people. The last Lodhis are the Afghans. Right. Muhammad Ghori proclaimed himself as the first Sultan, whereas Qutbuddin Aibak has never proclaimed. Friends, Muhammad Ghori will send this person called Qutbuddin Aibak, and he comes to India and he proclaims himself. But he has never said that he is the Sultan. He didn't use this word, but Ghori proclaims himself as the Sultan of India. Now I would also say, here you should know Quwwat al-Islam Makkah is built as victory of Islam in India. Okay, Quwwat al-Islam Makkah. Now I'm coming to this Iltutmish. Iltutmish introduced a system of Chahalgani, okay, or Chalgani. a pact of 40 Muslim Sardars. He introduces other aspects like Iqta system. Okay, Iltutmish is also is also related to Iqta system, and he will include three types of coins in his administration. That is the silver tanka, copper jeetal, and bronze biranj. So three types of coins made of silver, copper, and bronze were first time. All the three were first time introduced by Iltutmish. He was the real founder of Delhi Sultanate as he removed Mongolian threat with his cardinal policy. So, cardinal policy is related to Iltutmish. Now coming to Balban. Balban will proclaim himself as a Sil-e-Ilahi. Sil-e-Ilahi means the divine king. Okay. He also is known for his blood and iron policy. Okay. He will treat his enemies very harshly. That's why his policy of administration or military is called as blood and iron policy. He entered as a member of Chahalgani, but later he abolishes it. Okay, Chahalgani is like the present ministers or small kings under the big emperor, right? So 40 cardinals or 40 ministers, which was called as Chahalgani, which was introduced by Iltutmish. Through that system only Balban has entered into the Delhi Sultanate, but later he finds it more corrupt. Okay, so he abolishes it. This person Balban is credited for creating the department of military, that is Diwan-e-Ariz. Okay, remember this. There are a lot of these departments which are Islamic words. No need to remember all of them, but you should remember three, four important things like Diwan-e-Ariz, military, religious, okay, and then judiciary. Such kinds, if you remember, you can easily eliminate questions and prelims, or you can also write them in the main answers so that the examiner will understand that you have the knowledge of these departments. So Balban is related to every military aspects introduced in the Delhi Sultanate. Okay, Balban was the last powerful ruler of slave dynasty, but he is the greatest military king as he has dealt Mongols with blood and iron policy. Friends, Mongols could not enter India. Okay, if Balban was not so strong with his blood and iron policy, maybe for next 200-300 years, till the Britishers would have come, Mongols would have been the rulers of India because they were so powerful all over Asia. So through his blood and iron policy, Balban has stopped Mongols. He introduced Zil-e-Ilahi, that is divine monarchy. I have told you in the ancient history podcast what is meant by divinity of the king, right? He has also abolished alcohol consumption in public places. He introduced Persian customs and traditions in India. Now I am reading you four important words, Islamic words, which were introduced by Balban. Okay, they are the Persian customs, that is Iran. Persia means Iran. Paibos, Sizda, Zamnibas, and Nauruz. Okay, these are the four Persian traditions. Let me explain you what are they. First one is Paibos. Paibos means kissing feet of Sultan. When any person, even if he is a part of the 40-member Chahalgani, if he meets the Sultan, that is the emperor, he has to kiss the feet of Sultan. That is Paibos. Sizda is prostration. What we say Sashtang Namaskar. Okay, that is Sizda. Zamnibas is kissing hands of Sultan. So instead of kissing feet, you can also kiss the hands of Sultan. That is called as Zamnibas. And Nowruz, we all know Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year day. Okay, so these four are the Persian traditions which was introduced into India by Balban. So that ends the important aspects of the slave dynasty, right? Now coming to Khiljis. Okay, Jalaluddin Khilji ruled from Kilugari Palace. Later, the area becomes Naushahar. The present Naushahar was earlier the capital of Jalaluddin Khilji. Okay, Ulugh Khan is commander of Jalaluddin. Remember this, Ulugh Khan. And then coming to the important king, that is Alauddin Khilji. Right, Alauddin Khilji attacked the Devagiri Yadava kingdoms without notice of Sultan. He killed Jalaluddin and came to power. So I'm not going into political fronts. There are a lot of conquests of Alauddin Khilji. He sends Malik Kafur, and that Malik Kafur, like, he will be able to conquer entire South India, the Kakatiya kingdoms, right? The Yadagiris, etc. So Alauddin Khilji now he will establish himself as the Sultan of India. He is remembered as a great administrator. Now let's go into what he has done. So friends, before going into that, I would like to say four important kingdoms which were, just remember this, when there was Delhi Sultanate in North India, Delhi Sultanate could not penetrate into entire South India but could achieve for small part of years, okay, not continuously, but small part of years, they could achieve maybe up to Andhra, Karnataka, I would say, but they could not completely penetrate into Kerala and Tamil Nadu completely at any point of time. So I am now reading four important kingdoms during the which are contemporary to Delhi Sultanate. Okay, that will make you understand better. So just imagine South India and draw four grids in South India. So the northwest grid would be Yadavas of Devagiri, right? The northeast would be Kakatiyas, southeast would be Pandyas, southwest would be Hoysalas. So these are the four important dynasties which were contemporary to Delhi Sultanate. And Malik Kafur, Alauddin Khilji's slave Malik Kafur, would had successful campaigns on all these kingdoms, and all these four kingdoms were defeated. So all the four kingdoms that are the Yadavas, Kakatiyas, Pandyas, and Hoysalas all were defeated, friends. So that's why Alauddin Khilji has like till so far in the history, Alauddin Khilji has the largest rule of Indian region. Now, during his time, Malik Muhammad Jaisi wrote the Padmavat poem called as the Jaisi Padmavati in Awadhi language. Jaisi was a Sufi poet 300 years. Okay, so Jaisi, my friends, is a Sufi poet. If you don't understand what Sufi is, at the end of medieval Indian history, I will make a particular podcast lesson on the Bhakti movement. During the Bhakti movement, I will explain what Sufism is and how it has embedded into the Indian cultural traditions. So Malik Muhammad Jaisi was one such Sufi poet. He wrote the famous Padmavat poem. Recently, Padmavat movie came, so that was inspired from the Padmavat poem, which was called as Jaisi Padmavati. It was actually written in the Awadhi language initially. Later, it was translated into Hindi language. Now, Alauddin Khilji was the first Islamic ruler to enter Deccan or South India by the help of Malik Kafur, remember his name. And all South Indian rulers became the feudatories and gave taxes to Khilji. So what happened? All these South Indian kings who were defeated by Khilji became his feudatories. That means subordinates. Alauddin wished to be like Alexander, and so he wrote himself. He called himself as Sikandar, and he wrote himself as Sikandar-e Saini, that is Alexander II, on his silver coins. So on all the silver coins which were issued by Alauddin, he wrote himself as Sikandar II, Alexander II, Sikandar is Saini, right? Friends, this Malik Kafur has erected a victory pillar at Rameshwaram after winning entire South India. For some part of time, entire South India will be defeated by Malik Kafur. And as a remembrance, he went down south as far as Rameshwaram, where Abdul Kalam was born. So down south is Rameshwaram, and he had erected a victory pillar there. Who? Malik Kafur. Right now, Alauddin Khilji is administratively very famous for his reforms. Okay, for because of this, he had gained international reputation, especially for four types of reforms. So let me explain you what are these four types of reforms. I am telling you those four names: political reforms, revenue reforms, military reforms, and market reforms. Coming to the number one, political reforms. He has started the centralized administration. One. Two, he abolished the Ikta system. Three, he confiscated all Zagirs. Four, Alauddin was first sultan to separate religion from politics. So these are his political things. Crisply and consolidatedly, I am explaining you. If you note it, it will be easy for you. Second one is the revenue reforms. First one, he has created a separate department of revenue. That department is called Diwani Mastakraz. Alauddin was the only Indian ruler to collect the highest ever land tax, that is 50%. Friends, till now, many kingdoms they would collect only either 1/6 or 1/3 max. But he is the first king to collect 1 by 2, that is 50%. But why did he why did he get the need to collect 50%? Because he wanted to build a very big army. Because he wanted to remove feudalism. In the political reforms, I told you about the centralized administration and the removal of Jagirdari system. That means the feudalism which was started, I told you, by Satavahanas, okay, the Guptas, by Harshvardhana and the later kings, and the initial Delhi Sultanate kings. Alauddin wanted to get rid of that. He wanted to centralize the administration because I told you, only when there is a strong king at the center, his kingdom will be stable, because all the subordinates they will be under his control. That's what Alauddin wanted to achieve, so that he can run India right from Afghanistan to Rameshwaram, right? So that's why to maintain a big army, he needed a lot of funds. For that, he tried to squeeze the taxes from the people. So now, coming to his military reforms, he was the first sultan to pay salaries in cash. This is called Italak system. Italak system. Friends, this is very important. He is the first emperor in India to pay in cash. Till now, it was paid in kind. That means all the soldiers used to receive either lands or grains. That's it. They never received cash. So what Alauddin tried? He tried to uniform the system. He made it in cash. He was the first to maintain a standing army, and he also used system of dog and chera for horses. He used to brand his horses. Okay, to show people should understand that okay, these horses are royal horses. For that, he used to have branded them. That is the system is called dog and chera. Market reforms. This is the fourth reforms of Alauddin Khilji. He classified the markets into three types. They are Meena Bazaar, Janata Bazaar, and Army Bazaar. So, just like we classify everything today, at that time only Alauddin classified markets so that one kind of people will go to only that kind of market. For example, Meena Bazaar is only for aristocrats, that is upper class people. Janata Bazar is for the common poor people. Army Bazar is only for the soldiers. Okay. So in that way he classified. His market reforms were called as the wonders of medieval period. He also has specifically established a department to test the quality and the quantity assurance, that is the vigilance system. He had also ordered for strict control of prices. He did not he for this he established another department called Diwani Riyasat. So what this Diwani Riyasat officer has to do, he has to see that the prices of the goods are under control. Why he wanted the prices to be under control? Because he is giving cash to the soldiers. So if the soldiers are unable to afford the prices in the market, then there will be revolt. So he didn't want to do that. So everything was good, but the only the only fault was his collecting 50% taxes was very harsh on the people, common man. So, however, on the whole, Alauddin was considered as the most efficient ruler of entire Delhi Sultanate. So, out of all the five dynasties, starting from the slave dynasty to the Lodi, Ibrahim Lodi, the Alauddin Khilji is administratively was visionary and the most efficient ruler because he has brought reforms, medieval reforms which are of international fame. Now coming to Tughlaqs. First person is Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He built the Tughlaqabad city in Delhi. He is also called as father of postal reforms in India because he used horses as courier boys. Okay, horses, and he also used courier boys. He also started constructing rest houses as dak chowkis because when courier boys move for long distances, they need rest houses. So for them specifically, he had built dak chowkis. Who? Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He was contemporary to the famous Sufi saint Sheikh Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya. Okay, he is very famous, the Delhi station and all, Nizamuddin. So the Sheikh Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya is a Sufi saint again. He is contemporary to Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. Now, son of Ghiyasuddin is called as Juna Khan. Juna Khan defeated Prataprudra Deva too and captivated him. Who is this Prataprudra Deva? He is like Kakatiya persons. Okay. Now that Juna Khan is like believed to be the Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a great scholar in many languages. He was also a mathematician, cartographer, and calligrapher. He was also an expert in philosophy. So after Alauddin Khilji, Muhammad bin Tughlaq is the greatest king in terms of administrative point of view and reform point of view. He had also done some reforms. Let me explain you. He was the first sultan to sanction takkavi loans or temporary loans to the farmers during famine. So during his time there was a famine. So just like now, governments are giving loan waivers or farmer loans at cheap costs, cheap interest rate or zero interest rate to alleviate the farmers out of the agricultural distress. In the same way, Muhammad bin Tughlaq also gave these loans to farmers at cheap interest rates called as Takkavi loans. It was also called as the Famine Code. He had also laid down detailedly what are all the regulations need to be followed by any king, how to help the farmers during the distress. But on the negative side, he has increased the land tax in Ganga plains and due to severe cruel punishments, Gangetic farmers migrated out. Okay. As agriculture is most affected, he created a separate department for agriculture, Diwani Kohli. Just remember Kohli, okay? Kohli, this is Kohi, K-O-H-I. So Diwani Kohi is a department for agriculture. And during Tughlaq's rule, only two new kingdoms were established in South India. That was the Great Vijayanagara Kingdom and the Bahmani kingdoms. So you should understand. I will while explaining Vijayanagara, you will understand that Vijayanagara kings, Sri Krishna Devaraya, these people are always at fight with Bahmani kings. Okay, there are five Bahmani Muslim kings in South Deccan area that we can deal later. So Bahmanis and Vijayanagaras are the two contemporary kings during the Muhammad bin Tughlaq, right? Muhammad bin Tughlaq's famous token currency concept was inspired from the Chinese paper concept. Okay, when China invented paper, Tughlaq got the idea that we should do a token currency instead of coins. Till now, all the metals which are being used, that is gold, silver, bronze, Tughlaq felt that lot of money is being wasted, lot of precious metals are being wasted for coins. So he wanted to have a token currency. Okay, that is made up of bronze, I think, but you know that all failed because a lot of reasons. Later we'll deal that. So Tughlaq was called as the prince among moneyers. Muhammad bin Tughlaq politically has defeated Hoysalas and Pandyas also. Friends, Tughlaq's expedition to Khorasan or Central Asia was also a failure because it led to huge loss of military and has become mostly unpopular. It was criticized as a transcendental failure in his entire lifetime. Now coming to Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Firoz Shah Tughlaq was born to a Hindu mother, so he wanted to show himself as strict and intolerant. He was very intolerant king among the Tughlaqs because he wanted to prove himself as very close to Islamic law, that is Shariat. Okay. He starts a translation department called Dalail-e-Firoz Shahi. Under this department, many Sanskrit philosophies were translated into Persian. Friends, remember that this Firoz Shah Tughlaq can be related every time to all the irrigation measures taken by Delhi Sultanate. If there is any irrigation reform, if it is asked in your exam, that can probably be linked every time to the Firoz Shah Tughlaq only. Okay. For example, he was also famous for construction of cities. Okay. Before going to that, let me tell you what are his irrigation irrigation reforms. For example, he has built canals, he has built irrigation facilities in North India, because of which first time rabi crops were started in India. Okay, he was the first to introduce water cess. Okay, water cess was called as Haq-e-Shrab. He has linked Yamuna and the Kali rivers. He was the greatest of Tughlaqs, but his constructions and works drained out royal wealth, and so he is called as a liquidator of Sultanate. So, friends, he was the greatest king in these irrigation works, but he has spent a lot of royal money, so he was called as a liquidator. Okay, so apart from his irrigation works, he has also created very good departments. So these three to four are very good important departments. Number one, Diwani Bandigan. Bandi means slaves, so it is for slaves. Diwani Risalat, religious. Diwani Khairat, public works. Now he has also imposed taxes which are permitted only by the Sharia law, that is the Islamic law. These four are very important taxes, friends. Listen carefully. Kharaz, Khams, Jakat, Jajya. Okay, Karaz is the land tax. How much is Karaz? On Muslims it is 10%, on Hindus it is 20%. So there is discrimination here because I told you he was an intolerant person, an intolerant king. That is Karaj. Second one is Comes. Comes is on mines and war booty. What is war booty? Don't get confused. War booty is when a king defeats another king and when coming back, they try to loot whatever there in the royal treasure and whatever is there with the people in that kingdom. That is called as a war booty and called as comes. Apart from this, taxes on the mines are also called as comes. KHAMS. The third one is Jakat and fourth one is Jizya. Jizya is no like Muslims, generally Muslim kings, they impose taxes specifically on Hindus and specifically on Brahmins. Okay, that is called as jizya or jajya. Apart from that, there is also a specific tax on Muslims. That is only on Muslims. That is jakat. Jakath. Jakat. It is deemed to be a charitable tax. Since Firoz Shah was very interested in constructions, I told you he is a liquidator. He has constructed 5 cities: Firozabad, Hisar, Jaunpur, Firozpur, Fatehbad. Okay, that's why he is also called as Sultan of Constructions. That he always spent money on everything. So Firoz Shah, like you can say, he has led to disintegration of Sultanate also, because he has wasted a lot of money on all these constructions. However, positive constructions like irrigation helped North India in the later times. Now coming to the Lodi dynasty, Sikandar Lodi, which is who is very famous for building the Agra city. Like Firoz Shah, Tughlaq, Sikandar Lodi was also born to a Hindu mother. That's why he also tried to act very intolerant. He tortured even Bhakti saint like Kabir. Okay, his son was Ibrahim Lodi. You know, Babar, who was the first person to establish Mughal dynasty, defeated this Ibrahim Lodi. The first battle of Panipat, which happened in 1526 AD, was between Ibrahim Lodi and Babar. So remember, Ibrahim Lodi is the last king of the Delhi Sultanate. So what is Sikandar Lodi is one of the great kings of Lodi dynasty. He has brought this land measurement unit, which is called as Gaz-e-Sikandari. Okay, Gaz means a measurement kind. So Gaz-e-Sikandari is a land measurement unit to measure the land, how much long it is or how much wide it is. Previously, the land unit was called as Bigha. Okay, before Sikandar Lodi, the land unit was called as Bigha, Bigha. After him, it is being called as Gaz-e-Sikandari. So that ends the important political persons or kings of this Delhi Sultanate. Now let me come to the administration. Friends, in the administration there are four important departments. From here, listen carefully. They are the finance, defense, judiciary, and religious correspondence. You must mandatorily remember the Islamic terms of these four departments in the Delhi Sultanate. First one is finance, that is Diwan-e-Wazir. Okay, Diwan-e-Wazir is finance. Defense is Diwan-e-Ariz. Judiciary is Sadar. Religious correspondence is Diwani Insha. They like in Islamic it's called as Inshallah. So it is Diwani Insha, religious correspondence, and the priest is called as Barid. Right? Friends, the first one I told you, Diwani Wazir. Wazir is not only the finance minister but is also deemed to be the prime minister in the Delhi Sultanate. Prime minister is not the king. Okay, under the king there will be a minister. The important minister is both finance as well as the prime minister. Right? Now coming to ICTA system. I told you Iltutmish was the founder of ICTA system. ICTA system, friends, I did not explain initially because you will get confused. ICTA system is nothing like, is almost similar to the feudal system which I told you was started earlier by Guptas, Satavahanas and also. What those kings tried to do, they gave huge chunks of land to priests, to their military commanders, etc. That led to feudal economy. The same way, the Delhi Sultanate Iltutmish also started Ikta system where lands were given to these civil, military, judicial powers. So that also has established the feudal system again and decentralized administration, which led to instability. But later, Alauddin Khilji, I told you, wanted to rule entire India. Okay, he also tried to call himself as Sikandar too. So that's why he abolished this Ikta system. Now I hope you understand, right? So Ikta system was also like this feudal system of land giving only. Okay, now what are the new technologies? Some of the new technologies I'm reading, they are the paper manufacturing, carpet weaving, Kharkhana system, which we call as factories. The Kharkhana system, the spinning wheels, the buttis, all these were the new technologies that were introduced during the Delhi Sultanate. Now let me come to the culture of the Delhi Sultanate. Okay, the important culture is the birth of the new language called Urdu. So thanks to the Delhi Sultanate, Urdu language was born in the 14th century in Deccan. Urdu was born in the military camps of Deccan during the rule of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So friends, during the Muhammad bin Tughlaq, I told you they had a large standing army. In the military camps, this Urdu was born by a mix of Persian, Hindustani, and other languages. Okay, by 18th century, Urdu became popular all over India. Urdu is a fusion of four important languages, friends. Remember, Urdu is a fusion of Arabic, Persian, Turkish, and Hindi. So that why like Urdu birth can be traced to Delhi Sultanate. Urdu was born actually in the Deccan India or South India. Okay, Urdu along with Hindi were born in India. Now, in Delhi Sultanate, the official language was not Urdu. You should remember it is Persian. Persian was the official language of Delhi Sultanate. In Sultanate, a classical form of Hindi was called as Hindavi, prevailed among the Muslim poets also. So before Hindi, it was called as Hindavi or Hindavi. That was also prevalent among the Muslim poets. Sanskrit was popular even if it is not the court language, right? And the famous poet, because it came to poet, I have to tell you the famous poet is Amir Khusro. Almost all these 3 to 4 dynasties, for a large time, Amir Khusro had written about almost all the Delhi sultans. He has witnessed the rule of 8 sultans, that is from slaves to Tughlaqs. So from the slave dynasty to the Khilji dynasty to the Tughlaq dynasty, Amir Khusro was present. He used Hindavi, that is the classical Hindi, in his earlier works. Amir Khusro is also called as a love poet. He is believed to be creating the fictional characters of Laila Majnu and Salim Anarkali. So the famous characters of Laila Majnu and Salim Anarkali are fictional characters which were created by Amir Khusro. Hence he is called as a love poet. He wrote a great book called Khamash or Kaimsa with the theme of love. He introduced musical instruments. He is also famous for musical instruments and singing techniques. He brought all these new musical instruments from Central Asia to the Indian subcontinent. So let me tell you what are the musical instruments he has brought to India. Sarod, tabla, bulbul, sarangi, santur. He has brought to India. He himself has invented sitar. So Amir Khusro is the person who invented sitar. What are the singing techniques he has brought to India? Khayals, tumri, and tappa. Kyle's friends are like group songs derived from religious music. Qawwali, what we call North India Qawwali music, the Sufi music. So the Qawwali music or the Kyle music was brought by Amir Khusro to India. Tumris are the sad mood songs. It was also started by Amir Khusro in India. Friends, you should understand Islam as a strict religion as per Sharia don't allow music. Okay, but some kings allowed it. Okay, for example, Muhammad bin Tughlaq and Firoz Shah Tughlaq, like they were very intolerant for music, so they did not allow music in their courts, but they loved music personally. Okay, personally they loved it, but in the public places there should not be no music. But kings like Alauddin Khilji, he patronized even Hindu musicians like Gopal Das, etc. Okay, friends. So you should remember if anything is asked, or if in the mains somebody asks you to write about the poets present in the Delhi Sultanate, you should mention Amir Khusro. And you should also know another great poet of Delhi Sultanate. He is called as Ziauddin Barani or Barauni. Okay, he was not only a great critic of Muhammad bin Tughlaq but was a great poet also. This Barauni was only there during the Tughlaq period, whereas earlier I told Amir Khusro was there for 3 kings, okay, 3 dynasties. So in that way we come to the end of the Delhi Sultanate. So later we'll deal with other kingdoms like Vijayanagara, Kaktiya, and then we will move on to the Mughals. So before Mughals, I would like to cover kingdoms like Kaktiya and Vijayanagara so that you will have an idea on the South Indian kingdoms also. So that's it, friends. If you like this, do like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you.